And so welcome, my name is Talia Cotton to Let Me See Planning and Implementing Explicit Teaching in Adult Ed class, adult education class. My name is Talia Cotton. All of you know me, which is lovely, but I just wanted to kind of give you a synopsis of my career. I've been teaching or in education for 16 glorious years. 13 of those years as an instructor, and 16 of those years with some type of GED program. So I've been doing this for a while now. I have a master's degree, a bachelor's degree, and knock on wood, I'm going back to school to get a doctoral degree in instructional development. So I'm still professional. I'm still licensed as a Florida and North Carolina teacher in English and reading endorsed. And I've presented at all the places that you see below. I always like to do that to just kind of let people know that you are dealing with someone who knows what she's talking about. So we can feel comfortable in the information that I'm providing for you, but also so you know a little bit about me. The lovely thing is everybody knows me who's on here, so I don't have to go through my whole getting to know you spiel. But I did want to make sure that I put down my credentials, and I hope you just get something out of it, especially as your colleague, as someone who's in the trenches with you. Let's talk about our training norms. These are the things that we are going to agree to do to make sure that this training and this PD flows smoothly. So first of all, let's be present. I know that we're on Zoom, and I know sometimes on Zoom we can kind of have one eye here and one eye somewhere else, but let's try to be present. Let's be respectful. Let's be engaged. I'm going to have a lot of activities for you to do to just keep you engaged. Let's be focused and let's be a participant. This is an ambitious training, even though it's 2 hours. It's a lot of stuff that a lot of information that I'm going to be giving you. And so one of the things I've started doing is let's be okay with non-closure. If we get to 5 o'clock and everything's not given, that's okay. I always let you leave or let people leave my trainings with a bunch of resources. So even if you didn't get to hear me say all these things, it's there for you. So let's be okay with that non-closure. Expectations. We will probably have some technology issues. That's okay. We're going to get through the technology issues the best way we can and keep on moving. Let's make sure we keep for distractions, let's keep ourselves on mute unless we're talking amongst one another. If visual distractions as well. So if you're not like sitting right in front of the computer or the phone, you're welcome to turn off your video so that we won't be distracted by what's around you. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. I will try to monitor the chat as much as possible. If there's a question that you have an answer to, feel free to answer that question. We are a community of learners. Though I am the facilitator, and I've become an expert on this topic, I want everybody to feel free to give their expertise as well. So this is a learning community for us all. And so we're going to start with something called a connector. Okay, we're going to start with something called a connector. And a connector is basically we're going to connect our learning with what we already know, right? And so let's look at this question. What should you see in an adult ed classroom that implements explicit teaching? And so don't put it in just yet. We're going to have what's called a chat race. And the chat race is you're going to think about this question for like a good 30 seconds to a minute, right? You're going to start typing in the chat what you think the answer to this question is. And when I say go, you're going to hit the enter button and we're going to see everybody's idea coming in all at once. So that's what a chat race is. This is a good strategy, especially if you're trying to engage people in a virtual space. And so once again, here's the question, and I want you to think about it. What should you see, meaning you walked into an adult ed classroom, what should you see in an adult ed classroom that implement or has explicit teaching going on? Think about what you should see. Let's take about 30 seconds to think about that. And then let's take another 30 seconds to start typing. What should I see? I'm walking in a classroom. Miss Ashley said, hey, this class has great explicit teaching. What do you see? Or what should you see? Start typing that in the chat, but do not hit enter. Let's take another 15 seconds. Once again, you're in an adult ed classroom. Explicit teaching is happening. What should you see? What's going on in that classroom? And in 5 seconds, we're going to hit enter. So in 5, in 4, in 3, 2, 1, hit enter. Computers, I see someone saying computer Wi-Fi connections. I see someone, the instructor engage with students, groups. I see people saying things are said, not implied, not left unsaid questions. Students are communicating with the instructor and other learners, demonstration of learned topics, educational resources, a relaxed setting. So I do this because you already have in mind what explicit teaching looks like, right? But notice a lot of you said certain things that were similar, certain things that were different. And so the point of this training is to provide you with really clear look fors based on research. If explicit teaching is happening, this is what I should see. I'm going to make it just very, very simple. If you see these things happening in a classroom, explicit teaching is taking place. And so have those things in mind as we're going through the training, and think about, hey, do I do these things? Because I'm telling you, a lot of you do these things. Then think about, are there things that I want to add to my repertoire as a teacher? Do I want to add some things to make me a better teacher, to support my students a little bit more in my adult ed classroom? And also, I'll alert you to this, but this is a great before learning strategy. So it's like a really digital KWL chart. What I know, what I want to know, what I've learned. It's kind of something like that. So this is a great strategy to kind of take away before you start the learning, to kind of see what everybody knows or what they're thinking about the topic. So let's talk about our agenda. We already did our intro and a connector. We're going to have a quick overview of what you will get out of this training. We're going to do something called a gallery walk. We're going to do a digital gallery walk to just front load information to you. That's a great, and to generate some discussion. We're going to look at how to plan explicitly. One of the quotes that you'll see: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So, and one of the things we know as educators, you have to plan. There's no way to be a great educator if you don't plan and you don't have that documentation showing that you plan. It's just a part of the game. So we're going to talk about how to plan explicitly. We're going to have about a 5-minute break, stretch our legs, do bio things, and then we're going to come back and we're going to look at how to teach explicitly with our standards, how to use this acronym DEMP and feedback. And we're going to have some questions. We're going to see if we've learned anything by looking at other teachers teach and seeing if we see some explicit teaching look fors in their lesson. I'm going to explain your extension activity, which is, this part is 2 hours. You get another hour by doing this extension activity. That's 3 hours of time. Well, I explain that. We'll debrief and I'll let you go back to your day. And so that's our agenda. And so once again, we are planning, the name of it is Planning and Implementing Explicit Teaching in an Adult Ed Classroom. This presentation will provide a framework. So when you leave, you should know what's inside of the explicit teaching box. Plan a framework for planning for explicit teaching. Clarify those steps that are involved. We're going to review and practice the classroom look fors that take place when you have explicit teaching. I'm going to model, provide you with examples and a variety of resources so that you can now explicitly teach and add to your repertoire as an instructor. And then we're going to do all that so you can then create a lesson plan and instruction that includes the explicit teaching look fors, right? And so that's going to be important. Go ahead, Ashley, you had a question?
More like a comment. Which slide should we be able to see? For
Oh,
some
that
reason, it's still
helps.
on the connector chat
Zoom
room
share.
slide.
Can you see that now?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. That helped. And so sorry about that. And so at the end of this, your extension activity is for you to actually lesson plan and create an instruction that includes explicit teaching. That's going to have all the things we're going to be talking about. And the lovely thing about it is this is our planning week. And so it's a great time to plan for explicit teaching so that next week we can actually explicitly teach. So one of the things that I want you all to do is grab this link. I'm going to put it in the chat box. And this is put this in here really quickly. This is the resources that I'm providing for you. One of the things that I love to do is provide what's called a pantry. And so this is the pantry. And this pantry gives you everything you need in order to be interactive with me in this presentation. And so you should see something similar to this. And actually, I won't blow it up. So you have all of the links that you need to be engaged. You have certain documents that I provided for you. When we do our gallery walk and Padlet, that's there, certain documents, all of that is in this actual Power or Google Doc. And so one of the things that I want you to do is make sure you have that. I can see a couple people coming in. Make sure you have that because this is going to be your friend. Also, when we are done, this is still going to be your friend because I put in a plethora, a googob of resources. I'm one of those people, just inundate me with resources. And so I have a bunch of the support resources for explicit teaching. I have GED resources. I have CASA's resources. I have vocabulary resources, all there for at your fingertips. And so please make sure you have the access to that. Also, one of the things that I want you to be on the lookout for, pull this up, is anytime you see this graduation cap, I call it a strategy cap. Right beside that cap, you're going to see certain types of teaching strategies or instructional strategies that I'm using actually in my presentation, or I'm showing you how to use. Take note of that because anything that I'm doing, you can do in your classroom. And so I always like to have that because sometimes people do these great strategies in trainings and we don't think, oh, I could use those too. And so I want to make it really clear and explicit. I'm doing this and this is something you can do. So anytime you see that cap, take note, see if it's something you might like to utilize in your instruction. So let's get started. We are going to do something called a gallery walk, okay? And so a gallery walk is a great strategy that you can use. One, it's going to help your students have discussions. It's going to front load some information so that you don't have to be the continuous sage on the stage or the mouthpiece. You can actually be a facilitator of learning. And so that's what we're going to do. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to go and we might not go in breakout rooms. We might just stay in here, but I'll just let you all have the floor. But we're going to, and you can tell me what you want to do, but we're going to break you out. My plan is to break you up into groups. And you'll join your group and the group will review and discuss the information found in the gallery walk document. And then as a group, you're going to use the Padlet, which is a great resource, to complete that gallery walk task. Here's the task. Under each key term, you're going to write 3 to 5 important words from each slide that helps your group remember the explicit teaching key terms. So let's break that down a little bit more. First of all, a gallery walk is a discussion technique that allows students to actively engage. So that's what we're doing. You're going to work together in a small group. You're going to share ideas. You're going to respond to meaningful questions, document images, all of that. And so you're going to go, and in this gallery walk document, you're going to look at all of the key terms that are important to understanding explicit teaching vocabulary, right? Or understanding explicit teaching. Once you do that, you discuss it, you have a moment of just understanding what you're seeing. Then you're going to go to this Padlet. It's a free digital board, right? And in that Padlet, underneath every term, you as a group or even as an individual are going to write 3 to 5 words that are important for you to understand. And so one of the key terms is explicit teaching. You're looking for 3 to 5 words that helps you understand what explicit teaching is. So since I know what explicit teaching is, a word like behaviors, that's a really important word to understanding explicit teaching. All right. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing. So it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is it? It is 7. So it's 6 of you all in here. Let me ask you this question. Would you like to just do this in the main room, have a conversation together in the main room, or would you like to break up into GED and ESOL? Tell me what you would like to do. Unmute and tell me what you want to do. I'm at your whim. And let me make sure everybody can unmute. Okay, there it is. Good. What works for you all? Go ahead, Miss Kathy.
I think all of us in the same room, because even though we're teaching 2 different classes, boy, can we help each other.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I thought. I said, okay, when I saw the list, I think it might be great for you all to do it in the same room. So one of the things that I don't want to do is be a part of the conversation, right? So who would be comfortable with displaying the gallery walk on the board? Or I put it this way, I'll put it up, but I'm not going to be a part of the conversation. I want you all to have a very good organic conversation. And so let me share my screen really quickly. I'm going to put the gallery walk up on the board. I'm also going to model what I'm looking for. And then all I'm going to do is just when somebody says hit the slides, I'm going to hit the slides. I think I'm also going to give you the ability to annotate. Let's see if I can give you annotation. Yes. Anybody who's with their computer, can you see if you can annotate for me, please? Meaning you can draw on here. If you go to annotate, it should let you draw.
I'm gonna try it.
So it should let you be able to do something like that. Because I think that might help with the discussion as well. Can you do that, Ashley?
Oh, yes. That's
Awesome,
me
awesome.
saying yes.
So that's going to help, I think, clear all drawings. That's going to help as we're going through. So here's the first slide. It's a big slide of information talking about what explicit teaching is. My suggestion is to read the definitions, right? And then once you read the definition, take your annotation tool and maybe circle or underline words that you think are really important and really key for you understanding that text, that material, that word. My suggestion is once you get it, write it down because we're going to need it to go when we go to the Padlet. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if you understand the instructions. Visual thumbs up. So once again, every slide is going to have a word. That word is going to have a bunch of information. My suggestion would be to underline key phrases, key words that really help you understand what that word means, and write it down, annotate it, and then we'll move on. And so I think we have about, we're going to do this for a good 10 minutes. We'll stay on each slide for about 2 minutes. And then I'll move it along. So, but you really want to have conversations with that. I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to be in the background, and this is your time. Any other questions before we get started? And so I want everybody to unmute, so that way that conversation can flow very quickly. Go ahead and unmute. And the time is yours. And just tell, I'm going to give you 2 minutes and then move on to the next slide.
So are we looking at the slide now with words that we want to annotate?
Yeah.
Yes,
this
ma'am.
is
So
one of
like the first word is explicit teaching.
Okay.
Everything on this slide is telling you what explicit teaching is.
Okay.
So,
Well, I like to choose achievement if that's what we're talking about.
okay, I can throw that, I can circle that for you. Achievement.
Okay, student achievement, I guess, if you will, because that's what we're working with.
I did behaviors too.
Okay.
Modeling for sure.
Modeling, okay.
And learning goals, if you will, when you do modeling.
Sequential approach stands out to me.
Assessments.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Almost all of them,
5.
success criteria, of course.
Yeah, but she didn't want us to choose that many. I think
Oh,
she
no,
did like
I'm
3.
sorry. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
No,
no,
you choose as many
5.
as
She
you
said up
want,
to
but
5.
yeah,
Oh,
you want to get up to 5, but yeah.
okay, we're gonna be on circle the whole slide.
I know, right?
It's good stuff up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's take about 30 more seconds. Make sure you have this information down on your notepad. Things that
Practice.
you,
Sorry,
Say
that
that
one
again?
just hit me. Practice. Oh, yeah.
Oh, and on our notepad, we can write the word like that will really help us as individuals remember
Correct.
what this means. Okay,
correct.
cool.
All right. Make sure you have those words down. Remember, you have access to this. I'm going to go on to the next slide. Standards. The word is standards.
Are we circling words on this one as well?
If you, yes, ma'am, I would definitely do that annotation. It's a great learning strategy. Circle the
Okay,
words
well,
that you find really help you understand what standards mean and what is important.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, should know and be able to do.
That's it. Yep. Just the idea of noun and verb, not only is it part of grammar we teach, but things they have to things they have to recognize and things they have to be able to do in English.
What about success criteria?
Say that one more
I
time.
like that one too.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Well,
I
I
said
was
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
success
creating a
criteria.
learning goal. And success criteria.
Moving on to the next one. Learning goals and success criteria. Learning goals and success criteria. What terms help you understand those two key terms? Or what words or phrases help you understand that?
I like intended purposes and desired achievements.
Independently is a big one for me. Or
What are we learning? That's the,
yeah.
yeah, what,
Absolutely.
Very good.
What about measurable outcomes?
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else before we move on? Assessments. What words catch your eyes to understand assessment?
Formative. I think of that, things along the way, things we let them know, yeah, this is correct. You'll be understood. You get this. You know, something along, I think of that as along the way kind of assessment.
Learning progress.
Say it
I like
again.
that. Learning
Oh, I'm sorry. Learning progress.
as well as academic readiness.
Mhm.
and to me, evidence of student learning.
Anything else? Okay. So now we're moving into the instructional implementation. How do you implement explicit teaching? Start first is D, define content vocabulary. Define content vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. This is the, this is the, just the whole idea of content vocabulary. That's critical to every lesson that we have in class.
Using clear definitions and examples.
Yes.
Foundation of a lesson or unit.
Mhm.
Um, pre-teaching.
Mhm. All right, anything else? Okay. Next one is explain the content / skills. So an explanation of the content or skills.
Demonstrate the skills.
Mhm.
Under the lesson should not only provide the content vocabulary, I think all of those underneath there with the arrows there are virtually important. So,
What they need to know, give an
Right.
explanation of the content, break
Right.
down the concepts.
Mhm.
absolutely.
All right, anything else for explain content / skills? Okay. Almost done. Model with examples. Model with
Oh,
examples.
wow. Oh, for me, just the title of it. Oh my gosh. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes, that absolutely right there.
Right.
Hmm.
Hey, the whole slide,
Yeah.
Mhm.
the entire slide.
We have an
That's a
ESOL
good
term, realia, usually objects, pictures, acting stuff out. Yes, indeedy.
The displaying non-examples is always a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, Miss, yes. Yep.
Mhm. I
Anything
like how it
else?
says this at this point, the teacher assumes the responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Describing each step with a rationale.
There it is. Okay.
And right
Yeah.
underneath the teacher explains the responsibilities is making it slow and clear and well explained and using
Yes.
thinking aloud.
Yep.
Yep, think
Yeah.
aloud. Yeah.
Yes, think aloud is
Mhm.
good.
For me, that I said I'm not gonna talk. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Also, we talked about display non-examples, but boy, oh boy, misconceptions that, to clear up misconceptions. Yes. Well, again, the whole slide.
Mhm.
Yes.
Anything else? All right, we have 2 more and then we're done. Practice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Topic, practice.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
What about
That's
low
it.
risk practice? That's
Low
new.
risk, yeah.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree.
Low risk, yeah.
That's, I think,
Mhm.
particularly with scared adult learners,
Yeah.
that is incredibly important.
Yes.
Guided and independent practice.
Mhm.
Oh, boy. Yep.
What about the feedback and a frequent opportunity to respond?
Yes.
Anything else?
And anything to go on with that low risk practice, anything to reduce anxiety.
Hmm.
That is such a constant theme with
Yes.
the nurse.
Yes. Yes.
That anxiety, that lack of self-confidence.
Mhm.
All right. And I think this is the last one. Feedback.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Adjusts, redirects, or refocuses,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and will improve performance and support further learning.
And I'd like to stress informal.
Mm.
And again, low anxiety and informal feedback.
I like the student assessment data should be used as a source of feedback.
Mhm.
Anything else?
And it's relative to the learning goals and the success criteria.
Mhm.
Yes, definitely.
Ooh, one other, sorry about this, learner's performance. Learner's performance. Yep.
Anything else?
Well, the
Well-
Republican in me wants to correct, it should aim to improvement. But
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Well, at the very top, feedback is information, and that is always good.
Thank you.
Provide feedback to give the learner information about his or her
Yes.
performance.
Thank you,
What
Lisa.
happened?
And so that's all. And so what we're going to do is you're going to go to the Padlet, and underneath each, you have a whole list of terms. First of all, can you see my blue screen?
Mhm.
Perfect. So this Padlet, I don't know if you've ever used it before, but it's a great resource. It's something you could totally do with your students, especially online folks and face-to-face folks. This is like a board. And what you're going to do underneath each term, you're going to click on the plus and then add a word, a term, a quote that really helps you understand that word, that term. And so for me, it would be behavior. And so I click on it and poof, there it is. And so let's take about 2 minutes, and everybody's going to do this all at once. We're not going to do it individually. So hopefully if everybody's at their computer, refer back to your gallery walk and start adding keywords that help you understand these terms that are part of
I can't make it go.
explicit teaching. So let's make sure everybody can kind of get there. I see a few people are already in. If you're
Yeah,
in
I
and you're
can't.
able to do it, let's get started.
Okay.
Who needs my support?
Mhm.
who needs support to be able to get in there?
I can't.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw it right in the chat. That might be helpful.
Oh, so we need to hit the button
Yeah.
here. and
Oh, this?
Publish.
That,
So
wait a minute.
that link will take you there. I see Miss Brenda, she's in there. I see Deborah, she's in there.
I'm trying to type, but I'm not sure what I'm doing here.
So if you click on the plus, and
Okay.
you can type in
Okay,
you can type in
hold on,
the
I did
subject, or you
something.
can type in there, but the plus is what you want to hit. Go find the word you want.
Hold on.
So find the word you want, click underneath the plus, and it'll bring this up. And then you just start typing and hit publish. And it'll put it right in there.
Okay, I did something with my screen.
Okay.
So let's take about 2 minutes. Maybe some of you start from the bottom and some of you start from the top, so we can make sure we get all of that filled in. We have 3 in explicit teaching. So if you see 2 or 3 in there already, move to another word. But we want to try to fill it all up. Once again, hit plus and then throw in your terms.
Okay. It in plus, it ain't working.
You won't hit it on my screen. You'll do it on you'll pull it up on your own screen.
Oh. Okay, well, I'm lost.
That's okay. So
Okay.
what I'm gonna do in the chat box, I'm gonna put this link. Click on that link for me.
Okay, gotcha.
And then tell me, once you click on that link, do you see this blue screen?
Oh, okay. Oh,
There you go.
I see
Now,
it.
if you,
Okay.
there you go. And so you push the
Thank you.
plus, now it'll let you go in there.
Okay. Now there's a new learning skill that I learned.
I always
Gotcha.
try to put in just really cool things that folks can take away with them and say, "Ooh, I'm going to use that in class." And this is really cool because it's literally a notice board that you can have your students just do. So Miss Deborah, go ahead and click on that link that's in the chat.
I can't get rid of the okay, I can't get rid. How do I get rid of the pin that's moving around on the screen?
Oh, push the X at the top. So there should be an X right by that top. And that should get rid of your annotation tool. Let's take about 1 more minute. I need somebody to fill in practice for me. Sorry, Miss Deborah, say that again.
Okay, I don't see the X to get out of it.
Let me see. So annotate.
Oh, up here, I see it.
It should be a red X right by the save button.
Okay, I just found it.
Okay. And so go to chat and click on that link that I provided for you. And then do you see the blue screen?
Yeah. Yes, I have it.
Awesome. At least throw in about 2 words, 2 terms. Let's take about 30 more seconds. Okay, so let's go quickly. Let's do an overview of what people have said works for them. that helps them understand each term. So for explicit teaching, someone put assessment, modeling, systematic behaviors. For standards, we have what students should know. I would also throw in there what teachers are looking for. We have learning goals and success criteria. We have those measurable outcomes. I'm gonna heart that because it looks like measurable outcomes are really important. Desired achievements. And while I'm going through there, if you see something that you like, just like I put a heart beside it, you can put a heart beside it too if you like what they said. For assessment, I see learning process. Assessments can be informal. I will say that assessment tell you what the students know. One of the things that I always tell the teachers that I work with is that assessments aren't talking about you. They're telling you what your students have or have not learned. So assessments. Define content vocabulary. We have those clear definitions and examples. Love that. We have model. For explain content and skills. We have demonstrate. I love that. Why we are learning. For model with examples, we had led by teacher, yes, and clear up those misconceptions. For practice, we're going to give that good feedback. It can be low risk. It helps with that long-term memory. Yes, frequent practice helps with that long-term memory. It can be guided and independent practice. I like that. What is it? Gradual release. It is I do, we do. I always throw a y'all do in there because I like that collaborative work that students can do. And then feedback, specific and informal, and it helps to redirect the student. And so immediately I'm gonna go back to the slideshow. One of the things this strategy has just done is front loaded 2 to 3 hours worth of information in about 20 to 30 minutes, right? And so you have a quick overview of what explicit teaching and their look fors are. You know, you have to plan with the standards, the learning goals, success criteria, and assessment. You understand those terms now, at least a little bit, right? And then you have to have implementation of what you plan with the DEMPs. I call it DEMPs. And so you have to define that content vocabulary, explain the content and skill, model with example, practice that thing that you actually taught them, and then provide them with feedback, right? Along with assessments to show what they've learned. And so I've done all that in about a good 30 seconds, right? Or 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes. What we're going to do with the rest of the time is actually get into the weeds. What could this actually look like in my classroom? Because I can tell you all these things, but I'm a type of person, show me how to do it. Show me how you do it. So then later on, I can kind of work my magic on it and do it in my way, but I'm still following those guidelines. And so that's what the next hour will be about. How to implement all these things, how to do all these things, how to plan explicitly, how to implement it explicitly. And so what I want to do is I want to give us like a 5-minute break. I'm going to do the break early. Let's give us a 5-minute break. And then we're going to come back at 3:55 and we'll start with how explicit teaching could actually look in an adult ed classroom. All right. So let's take 5 minutes. I'm going to be here. So if you have any questions or anything while we're taking this 5 minutes, you're welcome to ask me any questions, but take a bio break, do what you need to do. And we'll be back at 3:55 or when the timer goes on. As a way to ease us back into the training and get us, prepared. What are some of your thoughts about these two strategies that I just gave you, doing a gallery walk of a lot of information and then using Padlet. What are our thoughts about that? And you are welcome to just verbally share out. What did you think? Give me a thumbs up. What do you think about that? Is that something you could use in your classroom? Kathy, I think you're talking, but you're on mute.
There we go. I kind of like the idea. It's a good way to get them, let's say, to think of vocabulary related to something specific. That could be interesting. I like it.
Mm-hmm. I saw Miss Brenda gave me a thumbs up. Also, one of the things that I've done with the gallery walk is I have posted the words. I've done something just as similar, but I posted the words around my classroom and I just let them rotate as a group and they discuss and they write down. So this is a digital version, but of course I gave you a resource. I always give you a resource to see how you can use this tool in your digital and outside. What do we think about Padlet?
Yeah, I think this is great. I've seen you do this in person, so I've actually, I know that walking around, looking at the words, it does help just for movement. For Padlet, it was a bit of a learning curve, but we got it there. I was automatically thinking, like, if I was subbing or something, my accommodation, how could I accommodate a student? We would probably just write it on paper.
Exactly.
But yeah.
You could pair them up with someone, you know. But yeah, and so
this is a great resource.
Good. And so I try to make sure I give when I do these things, give you stuff that I saw that I was like, oh, so, and we're back. And so now we're going to start talking about explicit planning, right? And so one of the things that we should all know, I'm going to mute everybody for right now, but you can unmute yourself when we need to. Benjamin Franklin says, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. When it comes to explicit instruction, it is a series of behaviors that increase the likelihood of student achievement. But you have to plan the behaviors. You don't just go in osmosis and, hey, I'm just gonna increase your achievement. You have to actually plan these things out. And so the first step into explicit teaching is explicit planning out what you're going to teach, right? And so we're going to be looking at the standards. A lot of times as educators especially those of us who went to school for education, they didn't harp on standards. But once I got in the field of education, standards are the thing that tell me what I need to teach and what my students need to know and learn and know how to do. And so we're going to be looking at the standards, right? We're going to start with the standards. We're going to know those standards. We're going to unpack those standards so we can make our learning goals and our success criteria. We're also going to review the assessment. We're adult ed. All of us deal with some type of major test, whether it's GED or CASA. We're trying to prepare our kids, our students for those tests. And so we need to know the test well enough to be able to instruct them on how to actually pass the test. And so that's a part of planning as well. And so we're going to look at unpacking the standards. And for some of you, this might be new. So if you've never heard, if you have heard of unpacking the standard, give me a thumbs up. That's what I thought, right? This is something that it's mostly in like secondary, elementary, where they make us unpack the standards. But I had a feeling that as far as adult ed teachers, we don't do this on a regular basis, but it's something that I think it's a skill set that we all need to have, because learning how to unpack those standards tells you what you need to teach and what your students need to know. And it really can skyrocket your instruction. And so we're going to unpack those standards, and we're going to use those standards to make our learning goals and our criteria. And so just as a review, we know that standards are what the students should be able to know and what they should be able to do. So every standard that's made, whether it's for GED or ESOL, the standards tell you what your students should be able to know and what they should be able to do. If you don't know that as an instructor, my pushback question that I have for all my teachers, then what are you teaching? Because if you don't know the standards, then what are you teaching? I know we teach topics. I know we teach, you know, certain content, but we have to know those standards because
Yep.
we might be teaching something they may not need to know, or we might not be teaching it rich enough for them. Kathy.
The first thing that comes to mind are, you know, behavioral goals. The student will be able to, and the next thing is a verb. What is it they're going to be able to do? And I know we have the CASA standards, you know, the academic and work prep standards. The student will be able to, and that's it. You know,
Exactly.
take out money, make a deposit, you know, prepare for an emergency. Absolutely, yes.
And so what we'll be looking at today is how to unpack those things, how to break it down so it just makes sense, right? Kind of what Kathy was saying, how make it just really clear and understandable. And then using that to make our learning goals and our criteria, success criteria. Now, success criteria, our learning goals are, what are we learning? Today, we are learning how to determine the main idea of a variety of texts, right? There's a lot into that, you know. First of all, they have to know what main idea is. They have to understand the variety of there's a lot in that one thing, right? Then success criteria tells my student or tells me what am I looking for based on that standard. What do I expect my student to do independently? So I expect them to determine the central idea of variety of text with 70% accuracy. That lets me know that they are successful at this. That accuracy part is very important because we can say, oh, they just need to determine the main idea, but what if they can do that only one time out of 10? Is that success? Not really. But if they can do that 7 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, or even 5 out of 5, we're getting there, right? So having that accuracy is going to be really important, knowing what they need to do to be successful. And so in your packet digital packet that I gave you, you have this big what is it called? Graph or chart. I love a graphic organizer. And it's going to kind of help you be able to unpack. So first thing I do when I'm trying to unpack a standard is I need a standard. So in there, right in this part, I'm going to use my annotation tool. Right where it says standard is where I would write my standard out. What standard am I dealing with at this moment, right? This next, what I need to do is to unpack that standard. I need to know the nouns or the knowledge that my student needs to know, the verbs or the skills that they have to have. What do they have to do? And all of that comes straight from the standard. And so this is a GED standard, of course. And here's some of the things that my student have to know. They have to know central ideas. They have to know themes. They have to know what texts are, right? They have to know development, because that's a really big word. You wouldn't think it, but most students don't know what development of a central idea really is, right? They have to know key supporting details and key supporting ideas. These are all the things that my students have to know. So when I start thinking about what kind of vocabulary do I want to bring out, that's going to help me. Now, what are the things that my students need to be able to do? They need to be able to determine something. They need to be able to analyze something. And they need to be able to summarize something. These are all the things that I have to be able to instruct my students to do. And a lot of times I will see teachers who say, okay, I got to teach central idea. But what about central idea, right? Like this tells me I have to do a lot of things with this central idea and themes in a lot of different ways. And so that's why unpacking that and finding what's going on in the standard is important. And so once I have my nouns and my verbs, I'll then try to figure out what are my learning goals? What are we learning based on this standard? And so here I take my verbs and I take my nouns and I draft like a sentence. Students are, when this standard, students are learning how to determine the central idea and themes of a text. They are learning how to analyze the development of the central idea or themes of a text. Summarize the key supporting details and ideas of a text. That's a lot for one standard. And I could break this down even further, right? So one of the things that I like teachers to understand and know, don't just rely on topics, rely on the standard, because I can say central idea and that's it. But now I know I have to teach a lot more than just central idea, right? I have to now prepare my students to determine or find or locate the central idea in not just one type of text, a variety of texts, right? Informational, poems, short stories, videos sometimes, right? I have to show them how to do that, right? Model it, practice it. I have to show them how to analyze the development of a text. Do they even know what the development means? That's something I had to learn as an English teacher. Development means details, right? And I have to teach that now because most of the time students don't come in knowing that. And analysis, that's a skill set. That's a mental skill set. Do I have strategies to show my students how to do this mental skill set, right? I have to teach that now. Outside of central idea, I need to teach you how to analyze something. Now I can bring back in central idea and show you how to analyze central idea. I can show you how to analyze those details because that's what development means, right? And then summarize. Some of our students don't know how to make a summary. They think summarizing is rewriting a bunch of sentences, changing one word and going about their business. That's not summarization. So I have to teach now. Now I know because of the standard, I have to teach them how to summarize, right? I might have to teach them how to paraphrase. So all of this shows me what I need to do as a teacher to be able to prepare my students to do this, to master this standard. The next thing, let me go back. I want to take this learning goal and now tell myself, what am I looking for, right? What are my measurable outcomes? What should my students be able to do independently? So my students can, if they're successful, they can determine the central idea and themes of a text with 75% accuracy. So out of 10 times, you need to get that thing 7.5 times, right? That's success to me, right? Or 70, normally for me it's 70. I'm a 70 girl. You can get it 70%, we're good, right? You can analyze, yes.
I'm sorry. This is Cassandra Warner. How are you doing?
Doing well. How may I help you?
Okay, I had a question. Okay, so
do me a favor. What I do, since you muted, let me go through this. Give me 1 second. Let me go through this and then I'll answer your question. I'll do it like that.
Okay. Thank you.
And so next one, analyze the development of a central idea with 75%. Summarize the key supporting details and ideas of a text with 75%, right? So now I know what I need to teach them to do, what they have to learn to do, and what success looks like. All right, real quick, questions. Oops, back up. Questions, Ms. Cassandra, go ahead. Ask them. And while she's
okay, I was asking about, would critical thinking be a part of the development?
So when they say the word development, what they're talking about for this particular standard is what details of the text build the central idea or theme. That's what they're talking about, right? Critical thinking is a cognitive process. And so my students need to have a cognitive process or a way to think about finding the development or finding the details in a text. That's what I got as a teacher. I have to put that together. Does that make sense? Like, let me break it down for you a little further. When I'm showing my students how to find the central idea, I tell them that they need to find the relevant details, right? How do I find the relevant details, Ms. Cotton? Okay, I'm going to tell you some hints. If it has the word first, second, or third in front of it, those are
Right.
most likely relevant details. Cognitive
Mhm.
process, right? Critical thinking. I'm showing you those hints, those strategies that's going to help you find how they develop the main idea. If they're using, and that's just something real quick, right? That's how you take that critical thinking piece and apply it to the standard. But you as the teacher have to do that because they won't come in with that knowledge. You have to provide them with that knowledge. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
That answered my question because I know that's something I deal with just across the board. My students, they want it to be right there in the passage. And sometimes, it requires you to go outside, think outside of the box. It might not be, you got to use your critical thinking skills. And that's something that I feel like a lot of my students struggle with, or this just generation. They want it to be da 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 da.
Correct.
And it requires you to, they might give you a leading, something like but you got to think about, like what the author is trying to say, without them giving you that, but you got to, and so that's something that, I'm like, it might not just jump right out at you,
And one of the things that I'll show you as we move along, in the modeling part, this question, this answer, this thought process is going to be really displayed in that modeling process once we get there. And so once I get there and kind of show you some things, let me know if that really answers your question. I think that's going to answer it really well. And so one of the things that I also wanted to do, because I don't just want to harp on GED, I want to make sure I show this with CASA. And so notice I used a very similar standard, right? Identify the main idea of a simple text or central ideas or things of a complex text. This is the standard from CASA, right? CASA's has beginning, low, intermediate, high, intermediate, advanced. So more than likely high and low intermediate would do the first part of it. And then high, intermediate, and advanced would do that more higher one. We still got to go through the same process. And so we're going to find our nouns and our verbs, right? Miss Ashley, you had a question?
Not a question, maybe a comment. I know we're not talking about it, but the standards that you are going over, these are like high impact standards. So they're already like very loaded in the context and in the goals that are supposed to be achieved. So
yes.
Yeah.
Main idea, central idea, author's purpose, tone, rhetoric, all of those are going to be and I'm, like I said, I'm an English teacher and I've been teaching English 2 test taking for years and I've taught GED for 16. The main central idea, tone, author's purpose, rhetoric, which is combined with author's purpose. Those are going to be the things that support your kids. If you don't teach anything but that in ELA along with writing, you're good. And so, yeah, I am giving you those good high impact strategies. And so real quick, what I'm going to do so I can move us along, I want everybody in the chat to give me one noun and one verb from this standard. So give me one noun and one verb from this standard. Identify the main idea of a simple text. And you can, once you throw it in there, just throw it in there. I can, as an English teacher, I can tell which is which. But give me a noun and a verb from each one. We have identify. That is a great verb. All right, now, main idea, verb, identify. Idea, verb, noun is main idea, noun phrase. I'll take that. Yes, I even threw in a couple adjectives. And so being able to figure out those nouns and those verbs are going to really help you. Now, simple text, that's got good adjectives in it, but they need to know not just text, but simple text. Versus the other students who are more higher level need to be able to do something with complex text, right? And they're just telling you they have to do one good action, Miss Kathy, and oh, he popped out. But they're telling you have to do just one action. They need to be able to identify it, find it. That's it. Locate. So boop, here it is, right? But it's still a lot that they have to do, right? So my students need to be able to, if they're high beginning or low intermediate, they need to identify a main idea of a simple text. So I might give them a recipe, right? And you have to find, something out there. Or I might give you a job description and you have to find it in a simple text, right? Or now for my high and intermediate folks, I'm going to give you a bigger article or, maybe two or three paragraphs. And now you have to find not the main idea, which is something that's a little more lower cognitive process, the central idea, because there could be many main ideas in the text, right? There could be many things that they're trying to push towards you. The central idea is the idea that brings every idea together, right? Being able to figure that out is different. So that's the thing, right? And then I have to now figure out what success looks like. So the students that I'm trying to work with to find the main idea of a simple text need to be able to do it with 70% accuracy. The ones who are doing it for a central idea and or theme is literature, poems, they need to be able to do that with 70% accuracy. And this is going to help me plan. Let me show you how. We just broke down those. This is the TCC lesson plan. We just used that document that I gave you to make our learning goals. All of that information that we just did is up here in the blue, right? For language arts for GED, we're going to be looking, what's the concept? The standard tells me what the concept, central idea and theme. What are my objectives? Here are my learning goals. Here's my success criteria. What's my standard? That's what it means, curriculum framework. Here it is. I've already planned that out using that first document. Now, as a teacher, I need to figure out, how am I going to do this? How am I going to help my students determine the central idea and themes of a text with 70% accuracy? What materials am I going to use? I love a good GED Academy. I got those Steck and Vaughn books, right? I love Kaplan. Kaplan was my thing when I was face-to-face, right? I got a PowerPoint because Miss Cotton love a good PowerPoint lesson. I got my computers, my headphones. I know I'm going to use that, right? How am I going to bring in workforce preparation? We're going to be reading some job descriptions. Why not, right? That's quick and easy. How can I bring in digital literacy? Hey, Miss Cotton gave me a great strategy. We're going to use Padlet, y'all, right? What am I gonna do for independent practice? The lovely thing about it is independent practice is already built in. GED Academy, Ed Minimum, some type of assignment that I might plug in, right? So we have that on deck. That don't require a lot of thinking. What kind of homework am I gonna give? GED Academy, right? What kind of assessment will I give? I might do a GED Academy practice test. Or I might give them a test that I created because I've done that before face-to-face, right? I might have them take that Kaplan practice test and that might be a part of it, right? And then my accommodations. How am I going to accommodate students who are not getting it the way I want them to get it? Additional support. So I'm done now. I'm done. All I have to do is just keep doing that. Miss Ashley, you had your hand raised.
Just a question. What did you say mean when we see your grad cap? What's that supposed to mean to us?
Strategy. So these are the strategies that I'm using. So this is planning.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
this is literally planning and planning with the standards, right? And you'll get to see how my PowerPoints and some other things as we go on, but I'm planning with the standard. As I'm doing this, I got the standard in mind, not just the concept, not just the topic, the standard. So when I teach this the first time, it just might be, we're going to do a gallery walk with our vocabulary, y'all. Because you need to understand these words before I start teaching. That might be my first lesson. But what's driving me is the standard, right? For CASAs, we're doing main idea, right? We have our objective. We have our standards. Miss Kathy, tell me something you might use. Burlington English, right? You're muted. You're gonna use a little Burlington English. Anything else? You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
English for everyone. We're giving them
English
activities
for
out of that
everyone?
for independent work and homework if we can get it together for that. So,
Right. So I
yes.
can throw that in there.
Yep.
She could literally use the same thing when it's talking about workforce, job description,
Mhm.
done. Right? Independent practice could be Burlington English. Homework could be Burlington English. Assessment could be Burlington English, right? But what this does now is, as a teacher, I know what I need to do to get my students to the success criteria.
Mhm.
And that's, to me, the start of explicit teaching, knowing what I have to teach, knowing the step-by-steps, because they're not going to get the 70% accuracy the first day. Some will, but most won't. So this tells me what I need to teach. And then in the planning, I need to review the assessment. Now, I won't spend a bunch of time on this because we have something coming up for that, but you need to know the test. We all of us here have either this GED test, that's our big bang, or it's the CASAS test. Know the test. Check the evaluation tool. Check and see how it's assessed. Because if you know it, you want to align everything you do in class with that test. So it should, what you do, your class assignments, even your class and your class assessments need to mimic the test. The question structure, the high yield standards, the type of questions they ask, the key terms that they use, like the word development is a word in there. You need to teach that. What kind of passages do you see? What kind of graphs do you see? What kind of photos? What performance tasks do you see? That should be mimicked in class. Because they give it to us, why not use it? And there are 3 types of tests. We'll talk about this later, but there are 3 types of tests: beginning, middle, and end. Diagnostic is the beginning. Formative is the middle. That's as we're going along. Summative is the end. We should be doing all 3. And so one of the things that I always have teachers do when we're reviewing the test is look at your test questions. Are you providing questions that mimic the test? And we won't stay here long because this is why. We're going to have an upcoming training on that in our student shoes, breaking down and comprehending the tests for GED. My GED people, I am going to put this in the chat. If you could, because we're going to have a little less time tomorrow, if you could take some time and look at the, not now when we get off, but look at the test previews. Take a moment to go through that, take it, look at it, because you're going to need that. Esau will be together the full hour, so you'll be able to do that together. But we're going to have a section that's going to take us through looking at the test, so we can mimic that in our classroom. How they actually set up the test, so we can mimic that. So I won't stay here long. We're going to have a whole training on that, but I just wanted to kind of give you a sneak preview. And so we've just learned how to plan explicitly. Let's talk about how to teach explicitly, right? We're putting it in the practice, excuse me. We're going to define that content vocabulary that we got from the standards and the assessments. We're going to explain the content and skill. We're going to break down that knowledge and the skills. We're going to model with examples, really important, core of teaching, using step-by-step demonstration with worked examples. We're going to provide a multitude of practice, and we're going to give feedback, so we can adjust, readjust, and refocus our learners' actions to achieve our success criteria. And so you want to start out, when it comes to teaching, start out with your learning goals and success criteria. Start out with your standards. So as you're teaching the students, let them know the standard, right? Let them know what it means to be, what we're learning, and then what it means to be successful. I always do that. And so what you're looking at now is an actual picture of a slideshow that I will show my students that will say, hey, this is what we're learning. Tell them, provide the why. This is what we're learning. Make it very student friendly. So for maybe East CASA, I wouldn't have all this up here. That might be overwhelming and too much, right? And then you know your students better than I do. This might be too much for everybody. You might want to just stick with one learning goal, one success criteria, and that's it. But normally in my English class, I told them this is what we're doing for the whole unit. And then I show them again and again as I teach them. Begin that lesson with the clear statement. Tell them the expectation, tell them the goals, tell them the criteria, so they know the why we're learning this. We're not just doing this because it's cute and fun. We're doing this because this is where you need to be. Love this. Define that content vocabulary. And on this side, you get to see actual examples of me doing that, right? The content vocabulary is the foundation of the unit or the lesson. They have to know those words. I'm going to be saying central idea, main idea, theme, text. And if they have no idea what I'm talking about, they're already lost. So the first thing I do after I show them the why of what we're learning, right? I then provide them with the words so that we're not confused when Ms. Cotton says central idea. We know what that means now because she did a whole vocabulary lesson on it. And so you might be asking me, how do I find those words? It's in the standards. They come from the standards. So remember when I had you find the nouns and the verbs? That's your content vocabulary. So see why planning is so important? Because now I have, this has lowered my cognitive load. I now know what words to teach because I plan, right? And so you want to have that explicit vocabulary instruction. You want to front load this information, meaning before I start a lesson on how to find the main idea, we're going to look at the words and we're going to understand the words. We're going to do some type of class assignment. I love a good Freyer model. Oh, I love a good Freyer model. That's what you see down below, right? And you can use those Freyer models in any kind of way or any type of way you want to. I provided you all with plenty of vocabulary resources. So you don't have to wait on me. You can go in there and find all those vocabulary to do explicit instruction. But also we're going to have a training on how to teach explicit vocabulary instruction, because there are some great ways to support your student, especially pronunciation, especially when I know, Kathy, you do that in ESOL. I know that's your bread and butter. But for our GED folks, sometimes we think pronunciation is not important. It is key to helping students learn words. And so we're going to have a whole training on explicit vocabulary instruction coming up, right? And I love teaching vocabulary, right? And so be on the lookout for that. Be mindful of that. But I also have you some resources. This is the one that I think is, this one in modeling, very important, core to teaching. Breaking down the concepts, knowledge, and skills, right? Breaking down those concepts, those knowledge, and demonstrating the skills. And what I mean by that, what are my strategies? What are my hints? What are the steps? What are the thinking or cognitive processes that my students need to know in order to do something? So the skill is how to find the central idea. Ask yourself, how do I do that? How do I, when I read an article, find the central idea? And once you think about it and you know the answer to that question, that's what you teach.
Mm-hmm.
Or, Kathy, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, thank you for stressing the need to be concrete when we are talking about stuff with students. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's critical.
It is. One thing about me as an educator, I don't operate up here in this rarefied air, because there are a lot of people that just don't live up there in their day-to-day lives. I'm not erudite every day, all day. Miss Cotton I'm a very smart girl. I got a great IQ, but I'm not thinking about, all these great, wonderful ideas every day. And most people aren't either. They're thinking about, am I going to cook my kids dinner tonight or am I going to just do pizza? I think I'm going to do pizza. That's our normal cognitive process every day. What shoes am I going to wear? Do I have enough socks, right? That's what we normally train our brain to do. Those are the mental exercises we do every day, right? Something just really 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. When I teach, that's how I teach. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, because that's the pattern that our brain goes in. So I need to teach you a strategy, a hint, a step, a cognitive process that's very simple to get you to think like me when you're trying to do these things. I also need to help you with the content, right? My lesson should not only provide the vocabulary, but it should tell my students what they need to know, how to break, it should break down the concepts, it should explain the content and skill, and it should show how to use those strategies. Here's an example. So when I teach main idea, when I told you 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, how do you find the main idea? 1, look for the topic. What person, place, thing, or idea is in the text? What's frequently repeated in the text? Right? And that's the first thing I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you what the topic is. We're using the word noun again, and I need you to use these hints. Step 2. Determine the main idea. How do I do that? Ask myself, what is the message? What are they telling me about the topic? Here's the topic, peanuts. What are they saying? Peanuts are a healthy snack. Oh, okay, I'm done. No, you're not. Step 3, find the relevant details. What relevant details, Ms. Cotton? The thing that tell you that peanuts are a healthy snack. It has this many calories. It has that much protein. It has really good fats. Oh, done, right? And I'm going to practice this and show them this over and over and over. And I don't just have one strategy to find the main idea. I got a plethora. And the reason I have a plethora is because I've been teaching English 2 for 13 years. So after 13 years, I have so many strategies to find it. And this is my favorite standard. So, you know, I love the main idea, central idea one. But I have so many strategies, like the one in the middle tells you all the hints that I have that I show my students. And I teach them these hints once a week. So the first one is this one right at the top. Then the next one is going to be the repeated words, right? And the next, and I come back and I cycle back, right? That's what it means to explain. And we're going to have a training on that. So we can dig deep into that, reading strategy, how to do that for the CASA and GED before, during, and after reading. So stay tuned for that. Model, core of teaching. Show your students how to do what you're teaching them how to do. I can't tell you. So I don't know if y'all know who this lovely gentleman is, good Bob Ross. I'm from the 80s. And so he would do, just make a little happy tree. Just happy trees. Remember, he would say that happy tree. And he would show you how to make a happy tree. And he would paint the whole picture for you. And you just watch what he did, right? Well, that's what I want you to think about when you're thinking about teaching. You are painting the whole picture of this content and the skills for your students. If you don't show them how to finish the whole picture, they won't know how to do it. So I don't have the luxury of saying, here's the picture, y'all do that and sit down. That's not teaching, right? Teaching is what Bob Ross does from start to finish. So when he's done with it, I can go back and I can say, okay, happy trees. He holds his hands just like this. He used this technique, right? That's what I want you to think about when modeling. I show the students how to perform the skill. So the strategy, the hint, the steps, the cognitive process. And I describe it step by step with the rationale. So I don't just say, hey, we find the main idea by doing this 1, 2, and 3. I say why we do it, right? And so actually, let me go back. And so the teacher takes responsibility of the learning at this moment. If my kids, I used to tell them, if you don't know it because I didn't teach you. That was my job, is to teach you. If you don't know it, okay, I need to go back and reteach, which means to teach again. I need to show you in a different way. I need to provide you with another strategy because this strategy maybe doesn't work for you, learner. It's my responsibility. These two pieces are my responsibility, right? The practice is when we're pushing it over to them, but this part is on us. And we have to be able to model, identify, and explain those strategies, provide that step-by-step demonstration and show examples what to do and what not to do. Like my grandma used to say, don't put regular sugar in your banana pudding. You need powdered sugar. That's a non-example and an example. Because if she just said put sugar in there, I'm thinking, no, you know, Dixie Crystal. She means powdered sugar. Powdered sugar is the example. Dixie Crystal is the non, well, Dixie Crystal does come, but regular granulated sugar is the non-example. Those things have to be important, and we have to show our students that. Here's an example of what that looks like, right? And you can model in so many ways. I modeled it with, I have an example with the strategy. I have an example with, we did a test and I break it down for them and I'm showing them, hey, this is how I think about this. This is what I'm doing. I have a practice where I'm showing them how I think about it and how to find it. I'm modeling all the time. Every lesson I give, I am modeling because they can't do it without that, in my opinion. And research says that's true. I love a good practice. So one of the things you need to know about practice, in order for students to put things in their long-term memory, they have to do it over and over again. In order for students to put things in their long-term memory, they have to do it over and over again. In order for students to put things in their long-term memory, they have to do what? Do it over and over again. So you can't just say, do one activity to find main idea and then we're done. It has to be done over and over and over and over again. And not in a way that, hey, read this article, do this main idea map. Read this article, do this main idea map. Read this article, no, we're not talking about that. It's read this article, do this main idea map. Read this article, circle the main idea. Read this article, just find the details this time. And I'm still working on the same skills, but I am practicing in different ways, different contexts. We're gonna do it. You're just gonna watch Miss Cotton, gradual release. Then we're gonna do it together. Then we're gonna do it collaborative. That's the y'all do. I'm Southern. That's the y'all do, right? Then you're gonna do it independently. And we're working on the same skill, but we're doing it in different contexts, right? In order for them to put it in their long-term memory, we have to make sure they're engaging in very unique ways to keep that in their mind, right? Deep learning develops over time using multiple spaced out interactions, activities, and assignments, right? And so this is what that can look like. And so this comes from when I taught English, but I had so the one that's down here on the bottom is guided. This is a modeling and guided practice that I did with my students. I had them, I was showing them a hint and I was like showing them how you see grit here, grit here, grit here, grit here. Look at the titles, look at the subheading. And I asked them, what's being repeated? Grit. Okay, now based on that, what's the topic? Grit. Real quick thinking. Cognitive process, done like that, right? And so then I might move them over to something else where they have to do, I did it, we did it together, we're gonna do it collaboratively, and then independently, you need to be able to find the topic. Up here, we have where I'm having them look at the vocabulary and your practice using and understanding that vocabulary with the Frere model, because when I start talking about theme, I need you to know the difference between theme and main idea. And then down at the bottom, I was a packet queen, but not a packet in the sense of just busy work, in very strategic work. So first of all, vocabulary always came first. Then we had some comprehension questions that I worked with them. Then we had a main idea map, you know what I mean? And while they were working on this, I am teaching. I'm still giving them extra practice, right? And so that's what it could look like. And so Cassandra, I hope that kind of, when we're talking about the cognitive process, that those 3 slides that we just saw, that's what I'm talking about. As the teacher, I have to provide them with the critical thinking. How do you critically think about this standard? And I have to model that for them, and I have to make them practice that. That's part of my job to do, because like you said, they want it to be right there, and sometimes it's not. Having those strategies are really important. And then
Yes, that was great.
good. And so last is feedback. And this is the thing, feedback can be given all through the lesson. So as I have them define the content vocabulary, I can give feedback. As I have explained the content and skills, I can give them feedback. As I model with examples, I can give them feedback. As we practice, I can give feedback. As we assess, I can give feedback. They can get feedback from the teacher, the peer, themselves. Work with all 3. My suggestion, work with all 3. You don't have to be the keeper of knowledge all the time. First of all, that's a big burden as an instructor. Second of all, other students know a lot. And third of all, sooner or later, thank you, sooner or later, they're going to have to rely on themselves, right? I'm not going to be there in the GED or the CASAS test. You're going to have to rely on yourself that, okay, I know this. So practicing that in the classroom, teacher, peer, self, feedback, very important. I can give an exit ticket or entry. We call it a bell ringer. I can give feedback with that. In my lesson, I can give feedback. In my practice, all these ways I can give feedback, right? And my feedback should adjust, redirect, and refocus the learner's action onto what is successful, right? And I do this to improve their performance. And so here's some examples, because you have to model with examples, right? And so here's, so like I've done main idea webs before, then I've decided, oh, I'm gonna do a main idea step. I made this whole graphic organizer. But one of the things I did with it was I modeled it for them and I gave them feedback, right? My assessment, you took the assessment, I'm gonna give you feedback. My bell ringer or entry or exit ticket, gonna give you feedback. My practice that I did with you all, I'm going to give you feedback. I'm going to try to give feedback at every step of the way, because the more feedback I give, the more they know which way to turn. Women, you've ever had your boyfriend or your brother or somebody hang up a painting and you're like, no, a little bit more, no, down, up, down. That's feedback. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give our students a feedback so that they can hang the picture correctly. So they can know the information. That's what we're doing. So we're adjusting, we're moving, we're seeing, no, but farther back, or you just say, no, I don't want it on that wall. I want it on this wall. I changed my mind. That's what feedback should do, right? 15 more minutes. Unmute, questions, comments, thoughts. What do you think? Go ahead, Kathy.
Two things. I have to go in a minute, but thank you. Second, ESOL, training in ESOL. We talked about present, explain, model, etc. Practice together, everybody, and independent practice. It just lines up so beautifully. Thank you, Talia. Goodbye, everybody. I appreciate it.
And Kathy, before you go, let me at least have you make sure you look at the extension activity. You'll create a lesson plan and submit it to that form. It's on your sheet that I gave you, but that's your next hour of time. You're gonna do a lesson plan. We got to do a lesson plan anyway, but you're gonna create an explicit teaching lesson plan.
All right.
And if you need help, contact me. All right.
Okay. And where can we find? Oh, are we gonna get this, or is it gonna be?
You already got it. It's in that. It's in that practice that I sent, or the participant guide that I sent you. But I knew you had to leave, and so I wanted to at least tell you that.
All right. Okay. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it so much. And
You're muted, Kathy. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Bye, Kathy. Anybody else? Questions, comments, thoughts about what you just learned?
This is Brenda.
Hey, Miss
Talia, how you doing, dear? Thank you so much. I think everything was so very well put together, very informative, excellent information. Things that I know and things that I didn't know and things that I needed to know and things that I can use even in the setting that I'm in. And even though, you know, all of the students in the jail, you have to handle them in a kind of a different way, but I think it all can be used to a certain degree in order to get the points across and to get the information on. And although they're all on different levels and on different subject areas, we can still use this to help them individually, even if I don't do it collectively or collaborative as a group. So I think this is very good. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. Anybody else?
I'll end it. So Talia, I just want to thank you. You know, I invited you because I know that you've been teaching a lot. You taught me a lot, and I really wanted to. I feel like I learned a lot about, I knew a lot about the standards, but just about implementing explicit teaching, even though I'm not in the classroom, sometimes I have to go in and sub, and just wanted to be of support. So I think that this would be great for me, definitely, to be able to explain how to apply the standards as far as lesson planning. I really like what you said about the feedback. I'm gonna try to use that maybe the next time I'm in the class, the teacher peer self. But overall, just thank you for just putting it in out terms that we can understand, and definitely giving us the tools that we need to kind of use this right now.
You're welcome.
Last but not least, this is Brenda. Congratulations. Good luck on your upcoming career academic endeavors. Absolutely.
Miss Cassandra, you had something?
Sorry.
Yes, I came in kind of late. I had a late flight, came in to Baltimore, so I'm out of town on vacation. But I'm glad Ashley is recording it so I can go back and look at it later. But I just want to say on that the last part when we're talking about doing the main idea for my students, once they get the main idea, that's to me that is the most challenging part. Once we get that, the supporting our details just flow. So that I sent you a message, the assessment sheet, can you either post a copy of that or email that to me? Because I would like to kind of focus on that, just giving them some passages and just letting them get the main idea out and then working on the supporting details aspect of it. But great training for the part. I came in on the last hour of it. Thank you so much, Talia, and I'll probably be picking your brain later on some
Not a
other
problem.
stuff.
I
But
have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I like I said, great information, and I'm glad Ashley is recording so I can go back and look at it later. But thank you so much.
You're welcome. I have literally a file of all those high yield standards. So I'm one of those people, I keep everything. I'm like the lady that's got, Scantron still, but I keep my mind digital. And so every lesson I've ever taught on almost every English subject I have. So if you need PowerPoints and presentations, I can give those to you. And even question stems, I have those. So when we do the training about in our student shoes tomorrow, GED folks, we'll be looking at question stems. And so one of the things I did want to show you, this will be helpful for everybody, not just Ashley. I gave you this document, and this document is kind of like, I use this with teachers at my current school when I'm going in their classroom and I'm looking for examples of explicit teaching. This is what I use. And so do I see evidence of standards? Do I see evidence of learning goals? And let's be clear, I'm not going to see all of this when I come in for I'm not going to see all this, but I can find this out from the lesson plan. I can find this top portion, that's on the lesson plan. Then when I come in, it's like, okay, are you talking about vocabulary? Are you explaining a skill or a content? Are you modeling with examples? Are you providing multiple facets of practice? Are you giving feedback? This, I can find the top from the lesson plan, the bottom by coming in and observing. And so this is something you can use to ask yourself, am I doing these things? You know, and then lastly, your next hour of time, because this is a 3-hour span, will come from this extension activity. Now, this is the thing. You have to do a lesson plan anyway for next week. So I was like, let's use this as a way to help you to plan. And so for your hour of PD time, you're going to use what we've just learned here, either collaborative, so you can get with somebody, you can get with me, or independently, and create a lesson plan for your first week of school, right? Standard based. So my suggestion, use main idea, central idea. That's what I would do. Because that's the first thing you need to teach anyway, right? Like if you're talking about reading, but you have science, social studies, all that good stuff to add for GED. And then ESOL, you have other things too, but do your first planning. And you're going to create your lesson plan for the first week of the semester using those explicit teaching key terms. You're going to use this link, and I've already put that in that practice thing, but I'll throw it in there. You're going to use this link to submit it to Miss Ashley, and that's how she'll know you've gotten your next 1 hour of PD time. And so what will it look like? What I did was adjust the TCC lesson plan to include the highlighted portions from this training. So it's going to include define your content vocabulary. What content vocabulary are you going to explicitly teach? What skill are you going to do? So for example, I will be teaching relationships, right? And I'm going to use the strategy of transition and signal words, right? Based on my actual standard. How am I going to model with examples? Here's my strategy. I'm going to have them do a signal word passage search, not a word search, but a passage search. You're looking for signal words in the passage. How am I going to provide feedback? Teacher, peer, and or individual, right? All of these have just been added. This is the same lesson plan. The only thing I did was add some real key things I want you to think about. And that's on the practice that I gave. I did Mr. C, I did the same thing for CASA, right? I did the same thing. I just added those 3 things, you know, the DEMPs to it. But the goal of this extension is to make you really think about what and how you're going to teach. So when we go back to all of this is not there, that pattern is there. That 1, 2, 3 is already there. Wait a minute, I need to define. So think of it like DEMP feedback. I need to define the vocabulary. I need to explain the content. I need to model with examples. I need to provide practice. I need to provide feedback. And that's why I set it up that way. But once this scaffold will be removed for the week after next, and you'll just go back to your regular one. However, Ashley, if they want to continue to use this, can they? If
Yes,
this will
yes,
be a
yes,
support?
yes.
Okay. And so
Mhm.
this is just giving you really explicit way to know what you're going to teach. But so give me 1 second. Other than that, do your 1 hour lesson planning with the adjusted one, so that way you can immediately practice and use this thinking that we have, and submit that to Ashley from in that Google form that she has. That's going to be where we submit our lesson plans from now on anyway. So I said might as well practice as we mean to go on. Let me send that to you in the chat. And other than that, unless you have any questions or comments, that's my time. GED people, go ahead and look at those test previews. So that way tomorrow we can immediately get started because we just have an hour and a half with each other. And other than that, I'll be sticking around for any questions or comments or any support tools you might need. And then Cassandra, I need to send you that presentation that everybody else got.
Okay.
And with that, have a great day, you all.
Thanks again, Talia. I really appreciate you.